What if the very quality that makes you a good person, empathy, could also be your greatest weapon? We talk endlessly about narcissists, the loud ones, the manipulators, the emotional vampires. But what about the silent destroyers, the ones who understand you so deeply they can dismantle you from the inside out? Today, we're unmasking a truth most people aren't ready to hear. That empathic overload, the extreme end of emotional sensitivity, can twist into a destructive force, not a benevolent one. You've been told empathy is a superpower, a gift, a path to connection, healing, and understanding. But what if that superpower is actually a ticking time bomb? What if the very thing that makes you kind is also the thing that makes you dangerous? Forget the simple good versus evil narrative. Forget the idea that empaths are always healers. We're diving into the disturbing reality of hypersensitivity pushed to its extreme. Because too much understanding can morph into a terrifying capacity for manipulation and control. This isn't about lacking empathy. It's about having too much of it and no boundaries to contain it. Empathic overload happens when someone feels so deeply, so constantly, that their nervous system begins to collapse under the weight of other people's emotions. They absorb everything: the tension in a room, the pain behind someone's smile, the unspoken resentment in a conversation, the fear someone won't admit they're feeling. And they don't just notice it, they feel it internally, physically, relentlessly. Over time, this creates a kind of emotional inflammation. The empath becomes raw, exhausted, hypervigilant, and eventually, they stop absorbing. They start defending. And here's the paradox. When an empath breaks, they don't become a narcissist, but they start to look like one. They go cold, detached, strategic, self-focused. They stop explaining themselves. They stop absorbing pain. They stop caring about being understood. From the outside, it looks like manipulation. It looks like emotional withdrawal. It looks like control. But inside, it's survival. Empathic overload doesn't just shut down kindness. It weaponizes insight. The empath still understands you, still reads you, still feels you. But now, they use that information to protect themselves, to create distance, to maintain control, and sometimes to dismantle you before you can hurt them. Psychologists call this archetype the dark empath. They're not narcissists. They don't lack empathy. They don't seek power for its own sake, but they do use emotional insight with precision. A dark empath feels deeply, understands instantly, reads people like open books, but doesn't absorb anymore. They can detach without guilt. They can walk away without explanation. They can cut emotional oxygen without remorse. Their empathy becomes a blade, not to harm others, but to defend themselves. This is the silent destroyer, the empath who evolved into something colder, sharper, more dangerous. Many dark empaths were raised in chaos, raised by narcissists, and in homes where love was conditional, emotions were weapons, silence was punishment, affection was earned, not given. They learned to read danger before they could speak. They learned to suppress their needs to stay safe. They learned to become invisible to avoid punishment. These adaptations look like empathy, but they're actually trauma responses. And when these empaths grow up, they carry those survival strategies into every relationship. They become hyper-aware, hypersensitive, hyper-strategic, and when pushed too far, they don't explode. They invert. They become emotionally unavailable. They withdraw. They protect, they control, not to dominate, but to survive. Have you ever felt someone understood you so well, it was almost unsettling, like they could see right through you, not to help, but to gain an advantage? That's empathic overload at its final stage. It's not kindness. It's not healing. It's not softness. It's a silent, strategic form of emotional power. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of someone who seemed to know all your vulnerabilities, this is your wake-up call. Empathy is not always benevolent. Sometimes it's the sharpest weapon in the room. So what do we do with this? We stop romanticizing empathy. We stop pretending sensitivity is always safe. We stop assuming that deep understanding equals deep kindness. Because the truth is, empathy without boundaries becomes manipulation. Sensitivity without regulation becomes control. Emotional insight without ethics becomes destruction. Empaths aren't always healers. Sometimes they're survivors. And sometimes they're the ones who learned to dismantle others before they could be dismantled themselves. This isn't about demonizing empathy. It's about understanding its full spectrum, from light to shadow, from healing to harm. Because when empathic overload becomes destructive power, you don't just feel the world, you reshape it.